46% of people who have a smart speaker use it to get the news. Now that's a fairly hefty percentage for those of you that are trying out playing around with an Amazon Echo device or on your Google smart speaker of choice. And news is one of the most popular categories across all of the smart speaker ecosystem for the simple reason that most of us wake up in the morning and want to check on what's going on out there in the world. Asking your smart speaker for it is pretty simple. Alexa just announced a new feature for news providers to be able to make their flash briefings, the little run through of the news of the day, a little bit more in depth than they have been able to before. You'll now be able to set your preference for which news provider you want to actually get your news from and be able to do certain commands like skip to the next story or find out more and go in more depth to these stories. And I think this is going to be a big help for one really obvious reason. Up until now, when you ask Alexa for a flash briefing, you get all sorts of content, depending on what you've set up. That might be the headlines from the BBC, read to you by a professional news anchor, followed by an entire podcast from some website that you've set up, and then, maybe the headlines of what's happening on the news or travel information or weather that's read to you by the Alexa voice. It's a really disjointed experience so far. So I think that this step in the direction of making you be able to have a preferred news supplier and go deeper makes a lot of sense. But there's still some way to go. You still can't ask Alexa for, say, the business news and get a different provider for business news than you would do for, say, sport or your average headlines. You may want the Daily Mail for your choice of provider for overall news of the day, but you may not want that when it comes to the business news or something else. And if you want tech news, well, you might want a specific supplier like The Verge or Engadget or TechCrunch or someone like that. So there's some way to go, but what we do see is that when you've got nearly half of all smart speakers users using voice to get hold of their news, it's a massive opportunity if you're a news provider. So start thinking now, if you're making content that can make people get in touch for the news every day, well, now you could become their supplier of choice, maybe not yet for a category, but overall.